Gabriel Elizondo from Al Jazeera English. There's a lot to talk about here, but I just want to follow up on, you said you had been investigating what you called credible reports of Palestinians being victims of torture and or sexual violence, I believe. Can you speak more about what your findings were or what you've explored on that front? And then I have a follow-up.
You want me to? Thanks very much for the question. So over a number of months, I carried out fact-finding and collected information and also received information from a number of sources which I consider to be credible, including sources that still have access to some of the facilities, both military facilities and prisons in Israel. I have sent and the allegation letter is now public. I find that there were two parts to that letter. One is around general conditions and the treatment of Palestinians, a serious attempt to diminish conditions, some being diminished because of the very large numbers of people and being held in temporary facilities rather than in prisons, but nonetheless a clear intention to and statements to reduce basic standards of treatment that are expected under the Nelson Mandela rules for all detainees, including Palestinians, but in this context targeting Palestinians. And then on the other hand, allegations that I received relating to mistreatment and allegations of torture of individual Palestinians themselves through humiliating conduct, through physical violence, and through threats of sexual violence. The information I had did not include actual individuals claiming to have been sexually assaulted. However, there were subsequent cases that I've looked into.
Did you ask Israeli authorities to access to any of the facilities? And if so, what was their answer?
So I have not yet received a formal reply from the Israelis, but I have met them on 4 separate occasions to follow up on the cases of Palestinians and have had briefings on an interim basis about changes that have been made, as well as making inquiries about why certain practices are continuing. I have requested a country visit to Israel. That is still, like many other countries, still under review. And importantly, I stress at all times that the access of the International Committee of the Red Cross in particular, but also other international observers, should be able to visit Palestinians in detention.
We have a couple of questions online. Ibtisam?
Hi, thank you. My name is Ibtisam Azim from Al Arabi Al Jadid newspaper. I have also a follow-up on Palestine. The link we got from your report is actually the one from July. So in that report, you talk about, you welcome the decision by Israeli High Court to close the Inhumane, the military detention center. But actually, so I'm not sure if you updated that, because as far as I know, in September, there was a court decision not to close that detention center. So could you say something to that? And then there were a lot of allegation of rape and sexual torture used against Palestinian detainees, not only in the last year, but also in past years. But in the last year, could you say more to that, given the fact that even Israeli right groups like B'Tselem published reports in which they investigated the issue in one of their reports that they called Welcome to Hell, in Israeli prison system as a network of torture camps. And they don't only talk about Inhumane, they talk about other prisons. So could you say more to that too? Thank you.
Yeah, I understand the Supreme Court issued a judgment and the Supreme Court continues to oversee not the closure of Sedi Tenman, and actually my present report was corrected, but the correction was too late to go into the report, so apologies for that. But that the facility itself the people in it would be moved to other facilities and or released. So it has slowly moved from large numbers of people down to, I don't have the figures, but I think it's in the 40s. It was built as a temporary military facility in the context more people than ever should have been put in this facility and for periods longer than that they should have been in that facility. What I understand is from my engagement on this issue is that facility is going to be upgraded. I think there will need to be considerable upgrading in order to make it a more permanent facility. And I am aware that there continue to be the use of practices that clearly violate the prohibition on torture and other cruel, inhuman or degrading treatments, such as constant blindfolding, stress positions, handcuffing for extended periods of time, overcrowding, degrading conditions and sanitary conditions. So all of those have been improved with the movement of people out. I have not been able to follow up on where those people have gone and whether they've gone to better facilities. I'm still working with some organisations on the ground who, as I said, do have access to those facilities. So that's what I can say on that. I am aware of reports of sexual violence. I have not received those allegations submitted to me on a formal basis. The information I had at the time in July was that there were threats. There was quite a regular practice of threatening sexual violence, but that those people, as part of those particular reports I reviewed, had not shown any actual cases. So that was one of the challenges I faced at that time, and why I would like to go and visit to be able to see for myself. I am following closely the case that has been reported on sexual violence. I understand, and I think my figures are correct, that there have been 46 open investigations by the Israelis into torture and other ill treatment, of which very few of them, as I understand it, have progressed to a level that is needed.
Just a quick follow-up, because when you say you don't have cases or people who represented to you with allegation of sexual torture or rape and etc., don't you also initiate investigation by yourself without only having people coming to you? I mean, the reports about these issues are not only all over the press, but they are also published by human rights organizations, including Israeli human rights organizations like B'Tselem. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think it's a fair question. The procedure at the United Nations is that I am able to initiate my own inquiries, but I cannot submit allegations to myself. So they do need to come from people through a formal procedure. We are also not allowed to rely on media sources alone. So even if we have multiple media sources, we are not able to say whether they're the same information repeated over and over again and what the source is. So it's very important with a mandate like the mandate on torture and other inhuman treatment, is that every allegation is investigated thoroughly, that there are no, as best as possible, no false allegations put forward or no allegations that are that haven't been established to a reasonable degree of certainty. And that's so important, not just for the people that are victims and survivors of this, because they will be undermined if there are false allegations on the other hand, and that includes worldwide. So I continue to be engaged on the issue, and I'm continuing to follow up. And I invite submissions from other organizations, of which I haven't received any of late, which is interesting.
Thank you. Could I just ask a follow-up? In Gaza, we're seeing this phenomenon over the last year of Israeli soldiers, after entering a person's private home, going in and to women's private clothing areas and displaying undergarments of women. I think you've probably seen that. I saw an interview with a woman that was a victim of that, and she said, I felt like I was almost sexually assaulted in a way. Is this something that you've looked into at all? Or how would you explain this phenomenon, or is it outside of the purview of your mandate?
Look, what I'd say is that, the rules of international law of armed conflict are clear. One needs to treat people with dignity and humanity. One needs to respect the private spaces of individuals and civilians. I have seen some of the documentation of that, and undisciplined soldiers who commit such acts of degradation should be disciplined. There should be investigations carried out. None of these acts that we see are acceptable, and nor were the attacks of October the 7th by Hamas. This dehumanization from both sides, this lack of understanding of each other, creates space for these acts to occur that wouldn't otherwise occur. That's not an excuse for them at all. And it does no service to the to any future prospects for peace. Both Hamas and other armed groups, as well as the Israelis, need to obey international law. They are all subject to it. People need to be swiftly removed from the zone if they've been found to commit these things, and investigated fully and impartially. And IHL should be respected in all accounts.